Hello everyone and welcome to another video from this series where we all learn from other photographers, and today we're going to take a look at 5 photos from 5 photographers that will offer us tips for wide-angle landscape photography. Now, wide-angle landscape photography, it's not an easy thing to do. You may think of the easiest thing to grab a wide-angle lens and go out there in the landscape and take some photos, but because of the wide angle, because of all those elements that happen to enter into your photo because of that wide angle lens, that is what makes wide angle photography difficult. Now, what focal lengths we are talking about? In my concept, wide angle photography, it's something from 15mm lens up to, let's say, about 35mm lens, and I'm talking about on the full frame equivalent. The thing that you need to bear in mind is that wide angle lens will tend to make foreground elements look bigger and background elements look smaller. So depending on where your subject is, you need to kind of create a balance between the foreground elements and the background elements in order to have a subject that it's really well represented. Now let's take a look at these 5 photographers with their own photos and talk about some elements that we can use in our landscape photos when we are shooting with a wide angle lens. Now the first photo is from Brookover, and as you can see in this photo, the point of interest is really close and it's also not that big, and because of that I think wide angle would be the obvious choice for this. Now, as you can see, you have a simple shot. You have only the point of interest and then you have fog in the distance, and this creates simple separation if you want. This is not always possible. This is not the case with everything, and this is a limited use of wide angle lens. You're not always going to have small subjects really close to you and then fog, but this is a simple way that you can use wide angle lens when you have a situation like this. The next photo is from Guy Tal, and as you can see, he uses a really simple and beautiful foreground element to kind of start the eye on the lower right of the photo and then move you to the upper left of the photo. So it's a really beautiful way to create a diagonal or a leading line into the photo. Be very careful, because using the wide angle as a way to always include foreground elements, it's not necessarily a good thing. You need an interesting foreground element and an element that will support your subject and not compete with it, because there are many situations when photographers use wide angle lens, include foreground elements, and those foreground elements don't add to the photo at all, don't direct the eye toward the subject. The foreground elements in many situations compete with the subject, especially because, as I told you, wide angle lens make the foreground element bigger, and if the foreground element looks kind of interesting, sometimes it can take the eye from the subject. In this photo from Guy Tal, you see a simple foreground element that completes the story, that gives you dimension and helps you travel to the far end of the photo where the subject is. The next photo is from photographer Percy. You can call this the beauty of an S line. I like to call it a strong zigzag, or a line that basically takes you to one side of the photo, and using that line the eye will go to another side of the photo and then come back to this side and then go this side. This twist, this zigzag, it's a really powerful way to keep the eye focused on the path that you really want. So whenever you have a powerful line that has a really big contrast, and that line kind of twists itself, try to frame it in a way that will kind of fill the frame with this line. So you can start, I prefer starting in the left side of the photo, but there are situations when you will not be able to do so, so you will need to start in the lower right of the photo. But let's say if you start in the lower left of the photo, you start on the lower left, you go to the right, and then you return to left, but you're not going all the way, and then again to the right, but again you're not going all the way. So you're making a shape like this that will kind of lead the eye to the subject. Now, photo number 4 is from photographer Takeshi Mitsuki, and it's another example of using wide angle lens to photograph landscapes. Whenever you have a big landscape and you have the possibility to photograph a reflection of it, you may choose to photograph only the reflection. Now you can do this also with a long lens, with a telephoto lens, but the problem is that you're going to focus on the reflection and then the surface of the water will create some blurs in the image that sometimes doesn't look that beautiful. Now by using a wide angle lens in a shot like this, photographing only the reflection of the landscape, you also make the viewer think. You kind of start the wheels of the brain, and whenever the brain is starting to think when it's looking to a photo, that is the moment when the audience it's starting to care for your image, because it's starting to think of the landscape, for example, of the landscape that it's above, of other things. It makes you wonder. So it's also a really interesting way to say that if you manage to create mystery in a landscape photo and the person that is watching is trying to decrypt what is beyond there, what is this story about, then I think you will have a much more successful image. And photo number 5 is from photographer Franco Fontana, and this is a really old photo, and it's a really good example that you don't need a really wide angle lens to photograph landscapes. In this example, I think he's using a 35mm lens. This is the lens that he's most using in all his photos. But as you can see, it's not having a really powerful element in the foreground. Actually, it doesn't have foreground elements. But what it has a layering that will kind of speak about depth. So it creates a simple story. You can call these photos minimalistic or abstract, you can call it whatever you want, but these are photos that are simple, that talk about the simplicity of the line in nature. And in all these compositions of simple lines, Franco Fontana includes a single element that is your subject. So these were my 5 tips that are related to wide-angle landscape photography, and I hope that you found it useful. I hope that it will improve your photography by using these tips and ideas. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, and if you are already subscribed, thanks for watching and sharing and commenting on my work. Now, for all of you out there, until next time, keep on photographing. It's the only way that you can get better. And bye bye.